Welcome back to the Automation Podcast. My name is Shawn from Insights in Automation, and this week on the show I meet up with Zachary Stank from Phoenix Contact to learn what PLCnext is and how to use it. But before we get to that, I first want to thank our sponsor, theautomationschool.com. They actually underwrote the cost of producing this episode. So if you know anybody looking for PLC, HMI, or SCADA training, please mention our sponsor to them, theautomationschool.com. And with that, let's jump into the episode. Zach, thank you for coming on the Automation Podcast. I'm really looking forward to learning more about PLCnext technology. We've been following it on the morning show. Of course, we've had your company on before to introduce us to the topic, but I'm really looking forward to learning all about this product. And I know you're going to even do a little demo for us. But before we get into that, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure thing, Shawn. Thanks for having me, first of all. My name is Zachary Stank. I am the product marketing manager for automation systems and safety here for Phoenix Contact USA. So that includes not only our control products, but also IO, HMI, IPC, safety, and some other legacy Profibus systems that we have. But that is my team. We're responsible for the US market. And I'm happy to be on here talking about PLCnext technology with you. So, the first thing I'd like to talk about is kind of just what is PLCnext technology. Everybody thinks it's just a hardware. It's actually a whole ecosystem of products. We have the hardware, which is PLCnext Control, but then we also have the software, which I'll be demonstrating later. That's PLCnext Engineer. We have PLCnext Store, which you can create your own apps, and you can go in there and upload and download apps from other manufacturers too. And then we also have the PLCnext community, which is a community completely centralized on PLCnext. And everything that you can do with it, there's help documents, there's Q&A in there, there's a maker's blog where people are invited to share things that they've done with it. And if you haven't visited yet, plcnext-community.net, you can get involved in our Beehive project that we have going on right now as well. So it's when you say PLCnext, it's kind of a loaded statement there. We mean a lot of things when we talk about it. For the most part today, I'll be talking about the control, so our hardware, and PLCnext Engineer, which is the software.
Now, when I did a show that I called the evolution of the programmable controller, I pointed out, and actually used PLCnext as an example, that people should not think because it's called PLCnext that it's any way inferior to other programmable controllers on the market. As a matter of fact, many vendors call their current generation of programmable controllers PLC. I know it doesn't say PAC,
Yeah.
but this thing can do things that some PACs can't do. So keep that in mind. So I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, no worries. And to me, and being in marketing, I can understand the difference. And sometimes we get caught up a little bit in how we name things. And I do a little bit that too. When I talk about the edge, if you ask 10 people what the edge is, you're probably going to get 10 different answers. So I'm okay if PLC, PAC, some people call it a hardened industrial, just PC Linux box, whatever you want to call it. To me, it is basically an industrial control platform that's ready for the next 15 to 20 years. So, and this is kind of our go-to statement. I'm not going to read it off here, but PLCnext is a lot of things to a lot of people. It's an open platform. It's got a Linux runtime on it. It's got a PLC runtime on it. It allows you to do edge computing, custom programming, and you can go into all different cloud providers, right? But the way we talk about it here, in the way I like to talk about it, is really using 4 words, right? So, well, 4 points. First, it's open. So PLCnext technology is first and foremost open. And when we talk about open, we really mean 3 things. It's Linux, it's IIoT ready, and it's revolutionary. So this idea of openness too is confusing because you'll talk to people that have been in the industry for a long time, and me, I've been in the industry for about 12 years, going on year 13 right now. But when you say Linux, a lot of PLCs and PACs are Linux based. That's nothing new. Linux is kind of the godfather of all control systems in general. There are Windows-based systems, there's real-time systems in Windows and things like that, but for the most part, Linux is there. So what do we mean when we say Linux? So when I say it's Linux, I mean...
Hey everybody, just wanted to jump in here really quick and thank our sponsor, theautomationschool.com, for covering all of our production costs this week. If you know anybody looking for PLC HMI or SCADA training, please mention theautomationschool.com to them. And with that, let's jump back into the show.
It's got a Yocto-based Linux Debian runtime on it, and it's a fully open system. So out of the box, when you open that box up, you can choose to load up our software, PLCnext Engineer, and program it like a traditional IEC 61131 controller, or you can choose to just go right into Linux. You have super user access. You can actually delete the PLCnext Engineer platform and work just like you would on, say, a Raspberry Pi or other Linux-based systems. And then you have a fully hardened industrial I/O and control platform that is Linux-based. So it's Linux out of the box. The next piece here is IIoT Ready. In 2018, when we launched this globally, IIoT Ready was one of those things that was like, I can't believe it. No one's ever going to use this. Cloud connectivity, who needs that? And today, when we get to cloud or you're talking about connectivity, it's almost a standard requirement within PLCs. So, today it doesn't seem that revolutionary, but when we came out with this, the ability to connect with Azure or to connect with AWS or to make that connection out of the controller was really revolutionary at that point. And you can do that out of the box here. It's got checkboxes. I'll show you this when we get into the software. You can click a checkbox and go right to our cloud, which is called Profi Cloud. We have function blocks and other clouds that are enabled within the PLCnext store. And it's pretty simple to use. We actually have a no-code, low-code, like PLCnext Edge Gateway program that you can download and install on this. So it basically turns it into a cloud connection gateway that doesn't require any programming. You just put in your token for AWS and whatever other I/O points you want to bring in. You can go right into the cloud. And again, that talk of edge, it is an edge device with I/O compatibility or capability. So you get that edge device, it can sit on the edge of your network, bring in existing Ethernet IP tags, Modbus tags, and send it out, Spark Plug B, MQTT, take it out to an ignition platform, whatever you're looking to do. And then the last piece here is that revolutionary. So everything I've been talking about, it's all possible. At the same time, it is still an IEC 61131 system. So if you have existing engineers that are used to ladder logic or function block, and that's what they want to use, it's not an either or. This is an and. So they can continue to develop in traditional IEC 61131 programming. You can bring in a new engineer that understands Python or is very C++ based, and they can work together on the same platform in the same hardware. One does IEC 61131 program, the other one uses Eclipse toolchain to do C++. You can do it all together. And then finally, the last part of this revolutionary bit here is it has HTML5 visualization integrated. So you can create HTML5 web screens directly from here. We call it our eHMI. So basically creating an HMI from the controller itself, and it just becomes a web address. So Shawn, I know what you're sitting there thinking is, how is this possible, right? What really does this mean? It's a good question. Even though I know you didn't ask it out loud, you're thinking it, and maybe the people watching this are thinking it. And here's kind of the steps we took in development. So we had an existing industrial hardware. It's called AxioLine. It's based off of an Ethernet backplane called AxioBus. It's been around since I think 2012. We launched it into the market. It's very quick and future facing in terms of its speed. It's robust in terms of the connector. So you got high shock and vibe on the backplane, and it's set up for an industrial platform. Then we went out and figured out which Linux operating system we wanted to use and which was most useful to the platform we were developing. That's Yocto, so that just gets installed directly onto the hardware that we already had. And then we basically create an existing control platform that sits on Linux. So, if you're new to computers, this might seem, revolutionary to you, but this is how people have run computers forever. And you run IEC 61131 languages on this, everybody's sitting there saying, this isn't revolutionary, Zach, you're just showing me a PLC concept. And yeah, this is the PLC concept, right? There's nothing revolutionary in this design. The revolutionary step comes in, you can do it in PLC, IEC 61131, Or we added tool chains, like I said, you can bring in C++ tool chains and work directly in here, and you have that HTML5. But the big piece here is because the PLCnext technology, that engineer program is just an app that's on Linux and you have full Linux user access, you don't have to use it. So if you choose not to use it, you can go with JavaScript or Python or something else and not use the IEC 61131, or you can use it together with the applications that you're running on Linux. This is also what makes it IIoT ready out of the box, because I can do things within the IEC 61131 world. I can also pull things into Linux, and this is why, I say AWS and Azure. Maybe 5 years down the road, a new platform emerges that is a new cloud that no one's even thinking about right now. This kind of makes us future-proof because Linux is our operating system. You have access to it. You can create, a connection out to that platform or that cloud platform using Linux and know that it's going to work for it because, it is Linux based. You can write a script for it. It's easy to do. The
Oh,
last piece here is it works with existing platforms. So if you have Ethernet IP control somewhere in your facility, we can read the tags in, send that out to the cloud. So it doesn't have to be your full-fledged PLC. It can be your gateway to the cloud, or it can just bring in the tags and kind of do something. We call it a fog. If you don't want to go to a cloud, you can do it on premises. You could do it there.
I everything I've seen about PLC Next look like the Axial Online, right? But
Yeah.
saw recently you guys actually have it running on an IPC now, which makes sense if the IPC has a Linux operating system, right? You could
That is
just put your
correct. Yeah.
PLC Next on it, and there we go. Look at that. I didn't
That's
even
exactly,
know.
yeah. It's almost like you saw my slide deck
I
before we did
didn't
this.
see the
I know
slide.
you didn't
No.
see it, but it's it was a perfect follow-on, and that is correct, Shawn. I mean, we can install PLCnext Core onto different platforms. So we have our traditional Axial line hardware here with the 2152 and the 3152. We do have IPC units. We call these our EPC. So we've named it an Edge PC. So this is a industrial PC that is Linux based. Again, it's the Yocto Linux, and we've installed that directly on it. We also have direct download Node-RED on here as well. So if you want to use Node-RED, with a physical disk space, you get more disk options here. This is more of a automotive type here with it's got safety on board, higher tier one manufacturers for automotive like to use this one. It's very high level. And then, like you said, this is an IPC at the top. It's an 8-core 11th gen i7. So it is it's the big daddy, so to speak, of the line. So in terms of hey, PLCnext, everybody sees the 2152, and some of the specs around that are, hey, I could see this as a small to a medium-sized machine. The 9102S is flat out probably the fastest thing that exists. And I don't know what people would use it for. We've had a few applications set up for wind in Europe, but the possibilities are pretty much endless with that one.
So just for the audience, the 2152 is what we've seen here before many, many times in the EPC 1500s, like the 1502, 1522. That's what we talked about on the morning show recently.
Mhm.
Can you tell us now, the 3152 kind of looks like a bigger 2152. It looks like the axial line style product, but it's like 3 times as wide. What's going on with the 3152?
Yeah, so the 3152 is about 2.5 times faster than the
Oh,
2152.
okay.
So you get increased memory. You get, I think, two more. No, it's still a dual core. I'm sorry. The 4-core is the 4072S. You get some enhanced capabilities in terms of onboard memory. All the specs are available if you go to plcnext.help
Okay.
online. It'll give you all the specs for all these. So essentially, it's a beefed up 2152.
Okay. Yeah.
If you have a larger program, or we have left-hand modules that you can add to this. That can
Okay.
take up to 3 left-hand modules. The 2152 can only do 2 or one.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay.
So it does have increased flexibility and things like that. I would compare it more to you're right below a like an Ethernet IP type of thing, I would say, you're at your control logics, like right below a control logics there, with the RFC 4072S being more like a guard logics, and the
Okay.
2152 kind of being a little bit below like compact logics in terms of functionality.
Okay.
Hey guys, I just wanted to break in here with a message from our sponsor, theautomationschool.com. Over there, we're currently filming all of our new Ultimate courses, and these are our 2023-2024 updates to all of our Allen Bradley PLC courses: Control Logics, Compact Logics, Micro 800, Micro Logics, Slick 500 PLC5. And currently, if you buy, let's say, Control Logics, the current course, you will get this new course completely free. Same is true with Compact Logics and Micro 800 and Micrologics. Now, the Slick 500 and PLC5 courses are brand new and they are available for pre-order as well. So if you're interested in any of this, please check out theautomationschool.com and you can contact me there using the link, or you can leave me a voicemail. And with that, let's go ahead and jump back into the show.
So yeah, so the 2152 is probably for your smaller systems. The 3152 sounds like it's for good size medium systems. Now
Mhm.
the RFC 4072, for the folks who are listening and can't see the screen, it really looks like a DIN rail mount, like a double wide DIN rail mount switch, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But it looks like it has a 4-port switch. It has USB. It looks like it has an SD card slot. And is that a screen on it?
There is a screen on it. Yeah, it is. There's a touch screen on it to show you some things that are going on with it.
Okay.
So it's an informational type screen. We also have I don't have it pictured here, the 4072R is a redundant version of this.
Oh, word.
And that has fiber optic out. So you basically put two of these together, you have fiber optic connection to them, and it gives you a redundant control.
Nice.
So it is, we lovingly call it our little toaster, the brave little toaster, because it kind of looks like a toaster when you're holding it.
It does a little bit, yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, the only the only thing here is that it does not have any local I/O on it. So like you
Mm.
can't, with the Axio line AXEF 2152, 3152, I can add I/O directly to the backplane there. The RFC 4072S requires the connection of an Ethernet head station or a bus coupler to get your I/O.
Now this unit though has safety, right? The other two did not. Am I correct that the RFC is the first model with safety in it?
Yeah, it's got safety on board. It's a ProfiSafe Master. It can do
Okay.
up to, I believe, 310 F devices. So that's over 300 drops of safety
Wow.
in the network. We also have a left-hand extension for the 2152 and the 3152. If you're interested in doing safety on those, it's called the SPLC 1000. That gives you 32 F devices in that network.
Oh, all right. So you can do safety on the 2152 and 3152. You
Yes,
just
you
need
can.
to.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we kind of made that more piecemeal. We found that at
Sure.
the 4072S level, the need for safety is almost, required at that level of processing. So
I think it's kind of unique in PLCs or PACs to be able to add safety on. But I think that's cool. I mean, it's great because if you need it, you just bolt it on,
yeah,
If and with a lot of other vendors, you just have to return the controller and buy another one.
yeah,
So, yeah,
it
that's
it's
nice.
pretty awesome how it works. Just to have that functionality at a price point. I'm not going to throw out any numbers here, but it is extremely um, you know, price efficient for that PLC, SPLC 1000, 32 points of IO, or I should say it's F devices. So it can be any Profi safe device. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be an IO point. So if you have existing Profi safe devices on your network, you can bring those in, but it is
Yeah,
extremely cost
VFDs
efficient.
or yep, yep.
Yeah.
So, going from the RFC 4072S, which is safety, can be redundant, looks like a really like a DIN rail mount switch, like a large DIN rail mount switch. We go
Mhm.
up to the BPC 9102S, and that looks like a panel mount industrial computer to me with a big fin on it, on one side of it. Tell us about that again. That is like the big mama with an I-core.
Yeah, it's an i7 11th gen 8-core processor on that. So it is extremely robust. It is dedicated for high availability applications and speed. Like I said, it's been mainly done in, I believe it's been wind applications, but we've gotten into some factory automation, larger factory automation systems. This also has safety on board, that's what the S designates. So it is a ProfiSafe master as well. So you can connect in the same amount as 310 F devices in there. So it is significant in terms of its ability to be the highest performance controller we have. Like I said, it does cost a bit more because you're getting
Sure.
you're paying for that high end equipment. But then you also have a hard drive on there. So if you're looking for local
Yeah.
storage, you need to if you're running lots of data. This sounds crazy, but if it's an edge device and this is the edge device that's going to compile everything before it goes out, to the cloud or something like that, maybe you can run calculations on this as well and do some specific programming on board here that, a 3152 is not really looking to do. So it is a significant boost in processing power and RAM and online or in on storage.
Yeah, I could definitely see that if you have the use case where, you're probably not going to max out PLCnext and PLC Engineer in that, but if you had this other application that was doing a lot of data logging or some intensive calculations, that would probably be where you'd use the horsepower.
That's right.
And it looks like it's very expandable from this picture. So, if you need a bigger hard drive, throw it in there and you're good to go, right?
I would say it comes with a fixed configuration right now. We're looking
Oh, all
at
right.
expandable possibilities. One of the things, because it has PLCnext on it, they try to lock down the configuration as much as possible to limit any
yeah, no.
interoperability problems that might happen. But it does give us the flexibility in the future to add, if you wanted to do, expanded, add another hard drive on there or add RAID functionality or something like that. It is in our map in the future.
Excellent. Well, thank you for just taking a moment and going over the line so I could understand it.
Absolutely. And then, I talked briefly about the left-hand extensions that are
Oh,
available.
there it
So
is. Yep.
yeah, there's a number of these that are available. There's, I think what we're showing here is just another NIC card. So if you wanted to add, an extra RJ45 port with a whole different MAC address, you can do that. There's one for safety. The safety one is yellow.
Okay.
That actually looks just like a PLCnext 2152 that's yellow. We have one that is, if you're using our legacy Interbus clients, we have an Interbus extension on it. That's not towards a lot of your audience though. And if they are, hi, thank you for buying Interbus for a long, long time. And then we actually have one that they just created, which is a PCI Express basically extension module. So it's build your own function out of it. So if you want to connect in and do something with machine learning or AI, we do have an AI machine learning left-hand module. But if there's something that hasn't been developed yet, you can develop your own, and it comes with a little kit.
So when you say PCI Express, it doesn't open up and you can't put a PCI Express card in it, can you?
The left-hand connection off of the 2152 is PCI Express.
Oh, it is. All right.
But it's not it's not traditional PCI Express. So you would need it's proprietary in how it connects.
Sure.
But that open module would allow you to create pretty much whatever you want out of it.
Okay.
And then the other thing we're showing on here, and I'll zoom in on it a bit here, is the I/O platform, right? So we're showing here our Axioline SE platform, which is our most compact. This has all different channels on it. Traditionally, you would add a slice configuration, that was just digital input or digital output or a combo module. These individual ones here can get put into either a 4-slot base or a 6-slot base here. And that way you have very high density modules. So for instance, the one we're showing right here, this is DO16. So you have 16 digital outputs right here. That counts as one module. We're showing another DO16 here. This is a counter module. More DO, and another counter here. So we also sell this in safety as well. So if you need a safety module, you can do that. If you need IO Link, we have an IO Link compact module like this. So it gives you lots of flexibility. It's modular and it's compact, and it works perfectly as a partner with specifically our 2152. But if you're looking for those smaller type of enclosures with the openness of PLCnext, but you still need IO connected right to it, the Axioline Smart Elements is a fantastic partner for this.
Well, I can definitely see, like, if you have a lot of IO in a small space, most slice IO, you have the IO module on the top, and the bottom is just a terminal block.
Yep.
Here, we have an IO module on the top and an IO module on the bottom, and we're wiring directly to the IO module. So you could get a lot of IO in a very small area, much more than I think you could do with your typical slice IO. So very
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely.
Hey everybody, just wanted to jump in here quick to let you know about my new show, The Automation Morning Show. It's a news show where I cover what's new and happening in industrial automation. We're already past 150 episodes for this year alone, and you can see all of the links of everything I cover over at automate.news. Now, how do you find The Automation Morning Show? It is on the same platforms as the Automation Podcast. So wherever you listen or watch the Automation Podcast is the same place you can find the Automation Morning Show. And with that, let's go ahead and jump back to this episode.
And this is expandable, so it's not, a one stop where I just get one 6-slot base. I can add as many of these as I want, up to a total of 63 individual slices on my backplane. So it can be very. I've seen one that was 4 SE 6 bases deep, and there was a lot of wires coming out of it. So they had fantastic cable management in that application, though. So
Nice.
certainly something to think of. And then the last part here is just, kind of a commercial for what's going on behind the scenes for everything PLCnext. Like I said, PLCnext is more than just the hardware. It's the software, PLCnext Engineer. We have a whole community, PLCnext community behind the scenes. The PLCnext store, if you're interested in that, you can go to the PLCnext store, see what people have developed. If you have an application that you're looking to develop, you can actually sell it on the PLCnext store and have a revenue stream that way. We have a GitHub available, so if you want to join the Git community there and look at all the great updates that are going on, it's a fantastic place to learn and to do with PLCnext. So the next thing I'd like to show you, Shawn, is the software, if I can bring that up for you.
Oh, that would be awesome. I'd love to see it.
All right, so I brought up the PLCnext Engineer software. I'm running the most recent revision of it, 2023.6. And it comes with project templates. So once you open it, you would get a screen like this, and it'll give you templates that you want to load, or if you want to load it. But I'll start with just a blank piece here. So you go to File, and New Project.
Now, just for the audience, you're running on Windows 10?
Yes, I am on Windows 10, but it should function with Windows 11 as well. I believe that is correct. So it opened up, and I'll try to be as descriptive as possible for those that aren't watching the video. The layout is pretty similar. If you've ever used any IEC 61131 programming software, it looks very similar. There are some quirks that if you're used to, the Rockwell software on this, everything's left-hand based. At least the last time I used it, which was revision 30, it was still all left-hand based. It looks very similar to what TIA Portal looks like, if you're familiar with Siemens. And I would say it's a very similar feel if you've used Codesys or something like that, a very similar feel to that. But I'll walk you through some really basic steps to get started on this. And really, this is where people get hung up sometimes. They don't read the documentation. I know I do that sometimes. If you don't like documentation, if you don't like looking at things, we do have a whole video series about this. Again, PLCnext.help. There's a getting started section there that basically walks you through everything you need to see and do to get started with PLCnext Engineer. But I'm going to start here with our network, and I can go down and pick our controller. So let me go to this, and we have our Phoenix contact devices. Before I click on this, I'm going to say there are a lot in here when I open this, and that is because I have a lot of revisions of this platform installed. So you can install multiple versions of PLCnext Engineer on your computer, and I think I have every single one from 2020.0 all the way up to now. So if you were doing this and you were only using a certain revision, you wouldn't need to sit and go through all this stuff that I'm showing here. But I found the most recent revision here, so I can just click on this and drag it over to my project. Once it turns into that little plus, I drop it in. And I wait a minute because I'm showing on camera. It's always going to take a little bit of time. So here we go. So I've basically put the hardware into the project. So now I can go into the project if I want and double click on here. And in my settings, the first thing that opens up, I can give it a network name if I want to, but the most important part is giving my IP address range here. So I'm going to go with the 1.2 and the 1. All the way to 254. I'm just putting in a range here for where my devices would fall. You can make this whatever you want it to be. And once you click out of that section, it'll fix the error that popped up. So it's just giving it a range. Now I go into my actual hardware. I double click on the AXCF 2152. And again, I can put my IP address in here as needed. I'm just showing this again. I'm not actually going to connect in live to a controller here because I don't want the possibility of my computer not working properly for everybody. But generally, you want to set your IP addresses first. And then if you did connect in here, the next thing you could do is you could go to the cockpit view and go to device. And you would see device health. It gives you humidity, percentage, board temperature of everything if you're connected in. And you can also do a scan in, which is grayed out for me right now, but I could scan in all of my I/O that's connected to this on the Axial line. So read Axial line F devices here. If I was connected and I just connected up to my controller, I can read in all the devices that I want. But since I've put in, my IP address, I'm just going to say, let's go into Axial line F. So in order to add I/O to this, I double click. So Axial line F is our backplane. If you're familiar with Phoenix Contact, Axial line F, the way I remember it is F is for the cabinet, so for inside the cabinet, and then Axial line E is external. So E would be the IP67 part of this I/O, and you would actually connect that via Profinet, which I'll show in a second. But I clicked on Axial line F. I just go in here and I can pick any of my Axial line devices that are in here. So if I have, let's say I was talking about the SE modules. So I have my SE module DI16 in here. So I have a DI16 module and I have an SE, let's say a DO, where's that at? SE DO16, where are we at? DO16, there we go.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there because I want to make sure I'm understanding what we did. First of all, we went to project and we double clicked on that and put a range of IP addresses for this project. Now this project can have multiple PLCs or PLCs and VFDs or all kinds of stuff in it. It's not just a single PLC project, correct?
That is correct. If I went in, so I'm showing you everything on the local bus for
Yeah.
a 2152. If I went into Profinet here and double clicked on that, I could connect in other Profinet devices, which could be another controller. So I can go into another controller device here, which we have all the Axial line PLCnext in here. I can do bus couplers if I wanted to. So a Profinet bus coupler. I could do our inline if I wanted to, which is a different platform for us. There's all different ways that I could connect in different modules here.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand. So you did project, you said this is the range of IP addresses for my project.
Yeah.
Then we dragged from the catalog, from the component list on the right, we dragged in our 2152 controller.
That is correct.
Dropped that in. And then we set its IP address. So that's step number 2.
That's
now,
correct.
Step number 3, which I think this is the order I would do things, is you went to the Axial line F, the chassis-based I/O that's connected to this controller, and you didn't have to drag out of the catalog this time of the components. It brought up a spreadsheet. You're just picking the items right in that spreadsheet, slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, and
That's
picking
correct.
out your DI, your DO. That's pretty intuitive. Now, so here comes the question.
Yeah.
Can you drag I/O modules, these modules from the components listing on the right? Can you drag those in?
Yes, I can. So if I go over here and let's say I'm used to this tree type of structure I'm showing on the right here. And let's say I had an Axial line F that I put in here. So it was a digital input output combo module, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can click on that and I can bring it over to my Axial line F, and then it goes in the next.
Okay, great. And it just went to the next available space. So I believe it did.
It went to the top because I put it there, but you could put it to the bottom if you wanted to.
Can you drag and reorder them?
Yep, I just did that on the screen here. Yep, you can reorder any way you want.
That's nice. So you can actually pick up the I/O cards and move them around the tree.
Exactly.
readdress them. Excellent. I do kind of like though when you went in there and just started using the spreadsheet. I think that's easier, but I know there's a lot of PLC software out there where you're supposed to drag things out of the catalog or components,
Yeah.
right? So I just
Yeah,
wanted to
absolutely.
see if that was possible to do, and it's good that you can do it both ways for both types of customers. Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was very used to the catalog approach here on the right-hand side where I have a tree structure and just dragging it over. And then
Yeah,
as soon as I figured out, I could just go in here and pick what I wanted.
it's easier. Yeah.
Yeah, and me being very familiar with how we name our products,
Yeah.
it's easy for me to understand that. I could see if you had no idea really what we were doing and you wanted to have a more like this folder says digital input and output, I could go in here and figure out which one of these
If you're
modules I
new.
want.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you're new. But
exactly.
in this spreadsheet, you can type in DI. Won't you just see all the DIs? If you,
Yep.
yeah,
So it'll highlight
exactly.
all the
So
DIs for me. It includes
yeah,
all the
and
safety
if
ones as well.
yeah, and it filtered all the other stuff out. So I mean, I
Yep.
just think that's super easy. Nice.
Yep. And that happens again, like I said, if you're looking to add functionality beyond the local bus,
Yeah.
if you're adding ProfiNet here, you can do the same thing. Again, it defaults to our controller devices, the first thing that comes up. So any PLCnext controller that's in here, we also have bus couplers.
Bus couplers, yeah.
Yep. And then you can also, if you have higher level, and I'm going to forget the name of the file that you can install for ProfiNet, but it's a GSDML. Is that right? I think it's GSDML.
GSD or
Yeah.
GSDML. Yep.
Yeah, you can bring those in here and then they can become connectable as well. If it's
Nice.
something you want to connect in.
So
And
this
then
is how
just-
you would add a bus coupler if you wanted to do some distributed I/O.
Exactly here. And I just click on this. I added a bus coupler. It comes in the ProfiNet. Now I go into this. I do the exact same thing I just did on AxioLine. And I can add in my devices as I need. Again, with AxioLine I/O, I can drag it, I can drop it, or I can bring in here, let's say I have an analog in module on this one. Yeah, so now we have, I/O added locally. We have I/O added in ProfiNet connections as well. And the next thing to do, I think, would just be a very simple, program. So to do that, I go over to programming here on the right-hand side. It brings up all of my structure that's in here. And I can go to local because that's my local controller that I'm using here. And currently there's 0 function blocks, data types, or programs because I haven't done anything yet. And if I right-click on this and go to add program, I can add a program, and this is going to be a counter.
Oh, this is a little strange because we're doing the programming on the right-hand tree.
Yes, this is so my first initial time I used PLCnext engineer like this. Again, I'm very used to the left-hand side structure and how that works. It took me almost 45 minutes because I refused to look at documentation to figure out that I had to come onto the right-hand side to get it. I was over here in the project space, in PLCnext and I was like clicking on these and like, why isn't it opening? I was looking for the add program. It's on the right-hand side. So
okay.
If people, I'll go through it one more time. If people get confused at any spot, this is usually where it's at. Programming on the right-hand side. You go to local, programs, and you can right-click on that and add a program. And then you double-click here on the right-hand side, and it'll bring up how you're going to do this in your programming spot.
Now let's tell the audio audience the options we have here.
Yeah, so we have structured text, right? We have ladder and function block diagram, and then just regular old ladder logic in front of us. And I'm just going to use ladder because it's easy for me.
It's still the most popular. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in terms of user base, I think a lot of people will understand what they're seeing, or if I'm talking about rungs and things like that, they'll understand what they're hearing. So I'm just going to make a real simple counter, right? So we start by adding our new rung, right? And I click on that and it creates our first object, which I need to create in here. So I'm just going to right click on it, go to create new variable. I'm actually going to make this a program global because I'm going to connect it to some IO then. And when I finish that, it should be done. So it is done. It's created it very similar to what you're used to seeing. Then I'm going to add a counter. So I'm going to go in here to IEC 61131, function blocks and functions on the right-hand side again. For those that are just listening, this is on the right-hand side tree under programming. and I can select counters here. I have count down, count up, and count up and down. So I'm just going to make a simple counter here. I drag it in and I connect as I get close. For those that are watching, as you get close, it automatically makes a connection to the run. You can connect it by just letting go then. It makes a connection to that countdown. And then I just need to add an output value here. So I do my new coil, which takes me all the way to the right. And I just need to make that a new variable. And again, I'm going to make this a program variable as well.
Okay.
So the only other thing I would usually put in here is the PV is basically a set value, a preset value for your counter. That's an integer, and I'm just going to make this and call it set value. Hit enter, and then that should come up red because I didn't actually make it yet. And again, create a new variable, and I'm just going to make this one local because I don't need to tie that into any IO. So this is me creating a very simple counter. I can then go over to my variables here on the top side of my programming space, and it gives me all of my variables that I've created. So I have 2 program variables and 2 local variables. One of them is the counter module. I'm going to make the counter, it's set as an integer value, and I'm just going to make that 10 for a 10-second countdown. And then you see here I have other tags here. So if I want to make it an OPC type of data tag, I can do that directly in here. I can also take it right up to our Profi Cloud with just a checkbox. So if this is something I wanted to monitor via OPC UA or Profi Cloud, I can do it right from here. So I've basically created a counter with a very simple coil structure in here. I'll go back to the code. So basically initializing the counter. It has a set value that I set for 10, and then it goes and turns on an output. So the simplest program I could think of. Now, let's say I want to initialize these IO modules, or I want to initialize these variables with IO modules. So I can go down to the IO modules that I want to look at, this guy, and data list in here.
Oh, yes, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get the PLC variable. Oh, did I not build it? I think I forgot to build it. Sorry. You rebuild the whole thing. Make sure I made it a program variable too. Oh, now I know why I didn't. Oh, so this is the beauty of it. So it warned me that I'm not actually using the program. So it's a good stumble that I did this because I was trying to go too fast. It warns me that I'm not using it, and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Zach, you just built it. What do you mean you're not using it? You actually have to bring it into your workspace here. And I think you can do that by, nope, I have to go into here. So I go into my PLCnext, and I have to add a task. So I'm going to add a name here. We're going to call it counter, right? And then I add my program here, which should be counter as well. Select program here, which is that. So there we go. So now I've integrated it into my actual PLC workspace. That's one of those quirks, like I said, that should get rid of my warning now that it wasn't used. Yep.
Can you show us the task types? Oops, go ahead.
Oh yeah, let's say I named it the same thing. So hold on. So we'll just name it
counter
task.
1 or task.
We'll just call it task 1. How about that? There we go. I don't think it liked it having the same name. So, all right. So there's cyclic task, event task, idle task, and user event task.
Okay.
So cyclic is sent time. Event task is based on an event. Idle is basically as fast as it can go. And then user event task is something that you initiate on your end. So now,
so the cyclic, you have it set as cyclic, and it's a 100 millisecond interval.
Yes. So I'm just running at a cyclic 100 milliseconds. I can change this to what I want. I think if you go into the controller here when it's running, it will tell you how quickly things are working.
Okay.
Yeah, and it show down here, it'll give you load and percentage of what's going on. So if you're trying to run something too fast, it'll give you a fault code there. But typically it can go fairly quick. And you can load different tasks on the different cores here. So ESM1 is core 1, ESM2 would be the second core.
That's interesting how the two cores are exposed. And so you can have the two. So that means they would be asynchronous to each other?
They could be, or they can be synchronous. You can
Oh,
choose.
right.
So then I should be able, now that I've added it, I should be able to add my tag in here. So let's go in here, variable tag. Balance of this. So int false comment maybe. I think I made it the wrong thing. So it's not a program tag. It's supposed to be an external tag. Let's do that one more time. So I switch them to external, which is, I believe, what they're supposed to be now, and it should, once it's done compiling, allow me to connect it into my I/O. So I want my input to be, there it is. All right.
I
So
see.
see,
So a program tag meant that was just for the program. By making it external, you can tie it to physical I/O. Got it.
that is correct. So I'm going to make my input going to be input number 1 on my Axial line SE. Oops. And my output of this timer would be the output 1 of the Axial line SE.
So when you click in there, it just shows you all the available addresses, which is pretty cool.
That's right. And again, it has to be a or an external tag for that to happen.
Versus a program tag, which is just inside the program itself.
Exactly, yeah. So if you were just using internal program tags, you wouldn't want to do any of that connecting it to I/O. But because I'm connecting it to my I/O, I made it external.
Got it.
And then I could build it, and let's make sure here if there's any errors that pop up, we should be okay. One thing I'm not showing here is we do have a free simulation software that the simulation is only for our 1152 on the free side. But if you, we do offer a license for 2152 and 3152 if you want to simulate in here, and we could simulate the inputs and outputs of this. But that may be for another time.
So if somebody now, how different programming is the 1152 from the 2152? Is it same look and feel, or would it be completely different?
So the only difference between the two is that ESM2 does not exist in the 1152.
Oh, all right,
that's it.
Great.
So it's a single core version of it.
So if somebody wanted to play around with it, they could use that. Nice.
Exactly. Yep. You just use the 1152, basically change all the variables and things that you want in there, and then you can actually, I can see if it's going to let me do it. I could change out the hardware, which is probably not the best thing to do live here, but you can swap out the module that you're using, and it'll rewrite everything.
Now let me ask you this: is there a trial of PLC Engineer? Like, can you try it out for so many days, or do you have to buy it?
No, so PLCnext Engineer is actually free. So what you're seeing here is all free. The only thing that costs is safety. So if you're going to do safety on this, you have to buy a license for safety. There's some other functionality that we kind of hide behind that license fee. But everything we saw here was free. The simulation above 1152 is something you'd have to pay for. And then there's some advanced functions that are also hidden behind the buying the license there. But everything you're seeing here is free, and you can go onto our website right now, phoenixcontact.com. If you just type in PLCnext Engineer and go into downloads, there's a free download that you can install the newest revision of it there. I'm using 2023.6, but we do have software archives. So if you had something that was running, I think LTS, long-term support for 3 years for most of these. So 2020 should still be available out there.
Okay, excellent. So if anybody wants to play around with this, grab a PLCnext Engineer. When you create your project, create it as 1152.
Yep.
And then you can use the simulator, and you can play around with it and see what you think. But I went from knowing absolutely nothing to now I think I could actually put a program together. You gave me enough to get me going, and I really appreciate it, because learning a new product, it can be a little daunting, if you don't have the time to read a couple of books, right? So
yeah,
I really appreciate it. I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, and like I said, if there's anybody out there that wants to do more than just what I was showing here, certainly these are the first steps, and the biggest quirk is having that the programming on the right-hand side and creating a program there. I showed what happens when you don't actually load it into your controller then, and you can't assign anything. But we have a ton of help files, plcnext.help. If you go there, there's a ton of information online. There's a quick start guide on there that has videos. There's also booklets you can read if you're more into reading than booklets. But there's a ton of information within the community to help out.
That's awesome. Well, Zach, I really want to thank you for coming on the show, giving us that kind of overview of the different products, especially the different controllers in the line, and also giving us this short demo. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely, Shawn.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank Zach for taking time out of his busy schedule to come on the show and bring us up to speed on PLC Next. I also want to thank our sponsor, theautomationschool.com, that paid for the production of this episode. With that, if you did enjoy this episode, please give us a like, a sub, and a share. That's the fuel that keeps us on the air. And you can also join our community over at automation.locals.com. With that said, I want to wish you all an awesome week. Stay courageous, stay fearless, and until next time, my friends, peace.